I think the main quality of this Betis team is the team. I mean, I know quite a few people inside the club, and the harmony in the club is the best it's ever been. And you can see that certainly with the challenges that the club have had this season in trying to inscribe all these players has shown that players are certainly trying to help for the common cause and trying to change their contracts to make sure that everyone was inscribed. And a few other clubs that would have been a disaster, but for Betis it kind of like brought the club together even more.
What's up, gente? Welcome back to Stand Sports. We're in Seville, the beautiful capital of Andalusia, and I'm here with the man, the host, the legend, David Whitworth.
Hey mate.
How you doing, mate?
Very nice to see you. How are you?
Great. You know, it's the sun is shining over here. You know, it's mid-October. You won't believe it, but it's like it's summer here. And you know, how are you feeling here? You know, I know you've been here for what, 10 years now. You're local.
It's flown by. Yeah,
how do you feel in this city, in this beautiful city of Seville?
Yeah, it's great to be. I mean, I'm overlooking one of my favorite views of Triana Bridge, and it's just like, yeah, it's flown by the whole 10 years since I've been here, but it's still a privilege to be here and following sport and just following my passion and following my dreams, and it's still amazing to be living this for sure.
Yeah, we're on Calle Betis, if anyone's wondering, in the barrio of Triana. This is the original barrio where basically Betis was started as a football club. And, you know, David, he's a LaLiga journalist, reporter, worked for Real Betis for many years. So who better to get on here to give us a little bit more insight on what's happening on the green side of Seville and the red side? Because, you know, as you know, Stan Sports here, we're trying to be neutral. You know, we're trying to see the loud neighbors as well. I was at Ramon Sanchez Vizjuan on Saturday, witnessed a little stopgap from their new manager, Jorge Sampaoli. 1-1 at home. Obviously, you know, we've talked a lot about their problems through the summer, and you know, Lopetegui, whether he was culpable or not. And at the end of the day, he's gone now. But how did you see Sevilla in their first game back with Sampaoli? Do you think you know, there's better days ahead from them? How do you see kind of the red side of Sevilla?
Well, I think in general there's a new manager bounce, and I think that whenever there's a new manager appointed, there's always going to be more, the players are going to be much more motivated. They want to put in more of a shift, because obviously, there's a malaise that's happened with Sevilla certainly over the last, let's say, 6 months. Towards the end of the last season, Sevilla were going for the title with Lopetegui, but in the end, the results, there were too many draws in that. There's a lot of pressure that came with that, and in the end, I think that they should have made the change at the start of the summer. I think that would have been the time to make that change, but nonetheless, they kept faith with him, and you could see that just like results were just progressively getting worse, and they needed a change from both the manager side and from the players. But you could see that Sampaoli's come in, and already in the first game, new manager bounced. The players were up for the challenge, and I think it was a deserving draw from what I saw of the game. So obviously, you get an early goal when you get a new manager. That's always important to get that the fans behind you. And I mean, it's a very, very good Athletic Club Bilbao side, one of the best starts they've made in La Liga. So I think it was a very, very good start. A lot of positives for Sevilla, taking into account like the bad season they've had up to the moment. So, but I think it was a change that was necessary. Maybe it should have come in the summer, but now it's happened anyway. And obviously they'll be hoping that this will be the change of form and change of luck for them as the season goes on.
No, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think also the fans, for me, made a difference in this game. A lot of support for the new manager. I think everyone's behind what Sampaoli is trying to bring to the club, and it can't get any worse. I think with Sevilla being in the relegation zone before the game on Saturday, but unfortunately the schedule is only getting tougher. They have Champions League game midweek. They're playing, I think, one of the big teams again in the next few weeks. So he's going to have to be learning in motion as things go. But let's talk about the green side, because Betis, you know, is on the up and up. Brilliant win at the Olímpico last week, you know, and unexpected, I think, to go get a result there, sitting pretty on top of the table in Europa League. A bit of a stumbling block this past weekend but I guess you could look at it from getting a point at Valladolid, who have been hitting maybe a bit of form, not too bad as a result. How are things feeling at the Benito Villamarin at the moment?
Well, optimistic. I mean, it's been 2 great seasons under Manuel Pellegrini, and you've seen that with obviously getting the 6th place, the 5th place, winning the Copa del Rey last season. And the club are going from strength to strength, on the field, off the field. You mentioned the victory in Roma. I think it's the first time in nearly 30 games that Roma were defeated at home, going back 4 years. So it shows you the task that it was for Betis to go there and get the win. Certainly losing Fekir after 20 minutes, going a goal down. A lot of teams could have gone under, but I think that's the strength of this Betis team.
What's going on with Fekir, by the way? Because I feel like after that injury at the Bernabeu, he hasn't been the same.
Yeah, it's a similar injury. There's a relapse of that same. I think it was a thigh injury that he's got. I think he's out for a couple of weeks, but I think they'll try and nurse him back and maybe give it even a week and maybe even 2 more weeks just to make sure that he doesn't come back too soon. Maybe like he's done this time around. Obviously, big miss for Betis. He's the fulcrum, as the maverick of the team. He makes things tick with absolutely, total talisman. And he's been the form of since he's come to the club. I think this is his best year he's had so far, and obviously it's a big miss. But having said that, I mean, the club have done well in getting players that are completely involved with the identity and philosophy of what Manuel Pellegrini is trying to bring. And even with the likes of Fekir and Canales, even if you do take one of them out, it's a big miss. But still, they've got hard-working players. Like one of my favourite players as a fan I speak now is Aitor Ruibal. He's a typical like Dennis Irwin. He'll give you like a 7 out of 10.
He's a fan favorite as well.
Yeah.
Loves a little chuckle, a little laugh with Joaquin every now and then.
But he's a hard-working player. Doesn't get the plaudits that he deserves, but he always puts in a shift. Put him in any place in on the field, and he'll do a shift. And like I said, he's a typical 7 out of 10 player, solid every time, consistent.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, Betis seems to be the place for. If you're a fullback and you want to excel, how many fullbacks in the last few years have we seen, have a great season here and then move on to other things, or, the likes of Bellerin coming here last season, being a great part of that Copa del Rey final, getting the assist, I think, to the Borja Iglesias goal in the final. Yeah, absolutely. Before that, the Emerson Royal had an amazing season. Junior Firpo. I don't know if it's maybe Pellegrini's system, but Alex Moreno at the moment, it's like the fullbacks seem to be, like a focal point of this club that seem to be really pushing the team forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, you make a good point. And certainly I think it's one of the key positions of Manuel Pellegrini's team. Those fullbacks give great width and dynamism and helps the team in an attacking sense as well. They're so important, those type of players. And you mentioned about Bellerin. It was a shame that he couldn't come back in the end, but such a big player for Betis last year, winning the Copa del Rey. Given that experience that he had for many years at Arsenal, the pedigree that team had of winning the Premier League and playing year in, year out in European competition, certainly helped that team coming back into Europe for last season. But I think the main quality of this Betis team is the team. I mean, I know quite a few people inside the club, and the harmony in the club is the best it's ever been. And you can see that certainly with the challenges that the club have had this season in trying to inscribe all these players has shown that players are certainly trying to help for the common cause and trying to change their contracts to make sure that everyone was inscribed. And a few other clubs, that would have been a disaster. But for Betis, it kind of like brought the club together even more. So like Bravo, William Jose, Joaquin were still like 3 games in and not inscribed. Then they managed to inscribe everybody, and they still managed to win all the games. They won 7 out of the first 8 games before the break, which says a lot about, considering that Betis only made 2 new signings, brought in William Jose again. They bought him from Real Sociedad. But there was many other targets that the club wanted that they couldn't get purely because of this reason that they couldn't sign anybody else. And the club did very well I think the key thing as well is that they kept the nucleus of the team. The likes of Guido, likes of William Carvalho, Canales. These players have been crucial for the growth of Betis the last 2-3 seasons. And I think that, it would have been great to have brought players in, but keeping them, knowing that that they're going to perform, that was the most important thing.
Absolutely, and Betis is still doing very well, not just in the Europa League, but domestically. Let's speak of the big boys. This weekend, Real Madrid and Barça, very kind of, 1-0 wins. Didn't kind of get into second, third gear. How do you see kind of the two clubs, before heading in the Clásico weekend? Certainly, I don't know about you. I'm feeling like this might be a Clásico that we're gonna definitely see goals from both teams because as good as Barça and Real Madrid have been, they're leaking goals. They're not as assured defensively, especially Barça with the latest injuries. I think it's going to cause them to have a bit of a dip, I think, this month. And we already saw that a little bit in the Champions League game against Inter. How do you feel with the big dogs going into the best or biggest, kind of most commercial weekend of Spanish football?
It's always the most juicy of games, isn't it? The Clásico. I think for any football fan, not just in Spain, around the world, it always captures the attention. Real Madrid, Barcelona. And it doesn't matter in what position or where they come from or the circumstances. I think it's always a game that captures the imagination, captures the attention. And I think you've got two schools of thought. You've got the Real Madrid team that are pretty much Ed Shaw, they're pretty much made from the last couple of seasons with Carlo Ancelotti, and certainly with the form of Benzema and how they are so solid and they're dogged, and they showed that certainly with last season with the Champions League. So they've come from a few seasons where this team is very much ready to go, and with them that they've got this never say die attitude. But I think in recent seasons they're more efficient than the classic. This is not the Galacticos of Beckham, Ronaldo, Figo, Zidane, that era. It's just more efficient. You know that they're going to get the job done, and that's the most important thing, I think, from their point of view. So that's the school of thought from Real Madrid. The Barcelona team, obviously the Hollywood signings they've made this season, all new. It's for a football fan in general, I think it's a neutral. It's very intriguing to see all these components like Lewandowski, Rafinha, all coming together. Are they going to gel with Xavi a full season under his belt? And I think they're looking for more panache. They're looking for more style and more goals and more entertainment. And I think that's why at the moment they're leaking goals, because they're not a complete. The identity is not quite there yet at the moment, and that's why I think you're seeing weakness points in the team. But it makes it much more entertaining certainly for journalists like ourselves to comment on, because you never know. There's always a lapse in that team that you think there's an opportunity to get at them. Right, with Real Madrid, you've pretty much got to play the perfect game and some to actually get the result. So it's going to be really, really intriguing, these two schools of thought coming into this game. But I agree with you. I think that you're going to see goals in this game, because obviously they're going to go for the win, but I think that even more so now, I think Real Madrid really just want to prove that they are still the top dog in the league, and for Barcelona they want to prove that all the money that they've spent this summer is for good reason, and to show that they are really in a title race and they want to put down a marker.
Do you think that there's added pressure to Xavi, because obviously you said it, they spent so much in the summer, they've built a kind of a dream team, so suddenly when Xavi first came in, it was steadying the ship. Let's see, if he can instill some philosophy into this team, get them playing well again. I feel like this summer, possibly the expectations have changed a little bit, and maybe a trophyless season won't be accepted as it would be last season.
I agree. I think that when he came in, I think that it was just like a firefighting job. I think it was a steady hand and someone that they could a key player, a historic player that fans can really have confidence with and respect, and no matter what happens, he's okay because he's bulletproof. It's Xavi. Certainly now I agree with you that there's added pressure because of the way they've gone about getting these signings, and I think that they, unlike last season, where maybe if they'd have brought in a few players, it would have been maybe the top four. Tried to win the derby, of course, but now I think there's added pressure. Certainly with the start they've made, they're already in a title race, and I think that second best is second worst. They're certainly in to win the LaLiga title. Maybe they'll try and deviate the attention and say we're a team in transition, but no, the amount of money they've spent, that is certainly added pressure for Xavi. They have to, at least try to make a good running of this La Liga title this season for sure.
And looking at other teams in La Liga, this weekend there was this kind of maybe Champions League playoff, the way I see it, with Real Sociedad and Villarreal. Imanol Wasu's team getting an important win. I think making a statement. To be honest, they're surprising me a little bit because I thought with the sale of Isak, with the injury that they got to Umar Sadiq, I just thought, okay, there's not enough goals for this team. Maybe their squad's a little bit thin, but they've been winning in the Europa League. They've been getting results in LaLiga. How do you feel about this last Champions League spot? Because speaking of Sevilla, it's obvious they're gonna drop down. I don't think they're gonna claw their way back up into that top four. So it is wide open for teams like Betis, Real Sociedad, Villarreal, possibly an Athletic Club after their start. How do you feel about this kind of cluster of teams, and who's got the best chance to get into that top four?
Well, certainly for the first time in years, it's wide open. Obviously, you've got Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid now with Griezmann signing. I think that will solidify them in the top four. But the fourth spot is wide open. You never say never. I mean, Sevilla have got that ability, certainly a home form when they can switch it on. It's going to be difficult for them to make a move from where they are. I think for them it's just like, Dami's limitation this season, but they can't be ruled out, certainly with the experience that they've got over seasons, but certainly it's wide open, that spot. I mean, for the likes of Betis that have been, year in, year on, they've been improving 6th, 5th. Logic tells me that they should be going for the 4th, but then again, being in Europe is still a big plus for the team, knowing people inside the club.
Is Emery and Villarreal kind of obliged to now get that top four? Because last season I think he got a lot of credit in the bank with the performance in the Champions League, and I think fans understood why this team wouldn't be challenging for the top spots in LaLiga. But then if you look on paper, I think they have probably the deepest, more skilled squad in comparing them to those other teams. So I don't know, would it be a failure if Villarreal doesn't get in there?
I believe of the three clubs like Villarreal, Real Sociedad, Real Betis, the last 3 seasons it's been their league basically. They've been playing for those similar spots of Europe. I think for Villarreal, I think that they've got the best opportunity because they've got the best squad. I think with them playing in the Europa Conference gives them the ability to rotate, which makes them freer for the league to be much more fresher. So I would still say that they are the favourites to finish that 4th spot. So it does put more pressure on them, certainly. And with the Emery factor, that he's got a lot of experience, the way that they successfully went about the season last season, I still think that they are their favourites to. They do mount a late challenge normally from like the business end of the season, let's say from January onwards, and it could be that they will get into form once the World Cup is out of the way, let's say. But I think it's wide open. I think Villarreal, Real Sociedad, you mentioned, they got a terrific win at Manchester United in the Europa League. They've got a really, really good squad. I thought they would have affected them more with the sale of Isak, but they've still got a very, very solid team, similar to Betis.
Very settled team, because obviously they've played together for a few years now. There's a lot of young players in that squad, so they've gelled. And still for me a little bit thin, to be honest, maybe for that top 4 push. And Athletic Club also, I feel like good team in a good form. Valverde's got him playing well.
That's very, very successful.
But ultimately, I feel like they're gonna come short because they don't have, on the look at the bench. They have Raúl Garcia to bring on, and all my respects to him, but he's not a guy that can decide you games and can score you goals. And I think with Athletic Club, it's something that also they've been missing for years. They haven't had a number 9, and unfortunately, with their policies, unless we have the next Llorente or the next Aris Aduriz born in the Basque Country, they can't just go and sign one. So
it's remarkable what they do, though, with how much they're handicapped and hamstrung by just signing players from the province, and still they're one of the only clubs that have never been relegated from La Liga. It's tremendous how they keep on bouncing back. You think like, and you think like, this is the season where they're going to be in a relegation battle. They never even seem to be in a relegation battle. It's remarkable how that club continue to perform, and obviously now with Valverde back, very studious, successful manager, and knows the league like the back of his hand, and made one of the best starts in their history. They're certainly in with a shout as well. I think the same with you. I think that the squad depth is crucial as the season goes along. So for instance, the likes of Villarreal, likes of Betis as well, they will be the ones that will have more favouritism going for that 4th spot. But it's going to be fascinating to see, because it's really wide open. It's such a juicy carrot dangling for those clubs to get into that Champions League spot.
Any other teams that surprised you this season? Osasuna had a good run at the start. Maybe the last few results, they've kind of tempered their expectations, gone down a little bit where you expect them to be. Valencia, decent start, also getting some results now away from home. Any teams that's impressed you outside of that top 6 that we talked about? Yeah,
we mentioned off air about Valencia, and they're always like a curious club to me growing up, like with the Mestalla and such a passionate, noisy, demanding fan base. they seem to finally be getting things on the field after 3-4 years being in the doldrums, let's say. I think the signing of Cavani's terrific. I still think he's got it. He's always one of my favourite
strikers. Still looking for his first goal, unfortunately.
It's going to be interesting to see how they do. I think that maybe even like in and around the top 6-7 should be a realistic game for them. I think everyone was interested to see.
To be honest.
Well, I think as a fan you've got to be like optimistic and always try. And certainly with the run they've got and the players that they've got in now, I think that I mean it was always going to be an interesting combination. And the chemistry with Gattuso coming in, the combustible figure, just like how is he going to be in a club that's so combustible? But it seems like I don't know. They're coming together.
The images of him kicking a fridge or like a portable fridge the other day.
Yeah,
it wasn't actually. He wasn't sent off, even though that's what a lot of people thought it was Diakabi from the bench. But he was so mad that
only him could be capable of those shenanigans.
Unbelievable. Any players maybe that kind of burst onto the scene this season, or you've been impressed with their form this season?
I think like last season with Villarreal with Yeremy Pina, I think like with the hat trick, was it 4 goals that he scored in one game last season? I'm curious to see how he's going to do this season. I think the Spain
call up as well.
Yes. So I mean, there's competition for places obviously in that Spanish team, and obviously a player that everyone knows is Ansu Fati. I'm interested to see how he's going to do coming back from injury. I think there's a really, really great player there. He just needs the consistency, a run of form, a run of games, so he doesn't have any injuries whatsoever, because he's a real jewel for all the players that Barcelona brought in. I think that Fati for me is the real the diamond in that team, and obviously taking Messi's number, it's a bold statement to take that, but I think that there's got to be a place for him in that Barcelona team. It'd be interesting to see how he helps the team in their, let's say, title push this season.
Shout out to your guy Borja Iglesias as well, being consistent, getting the Spain call-up as well, looking like he's going to be involved in that World Cup as a plan B, something that, a testament to his hard work in the last few years and his goal-scoring abilities, and the fact that he is a good plan B. He's something different up front that Spain doesn't have, and can offer something off the bench. Thank you so much, David. This was just a little roundup for La Liga. Watch out for our, of course, Roma versus Betis preview in the Europa League. Ciao.